Welcome to the deep dive. Really appreciate you letting us dig into this stack of sources you've shared. We've got articles, research notes, even some email excerpts here. Quite a bit to unpack.
It's a fascinating collection, isn't it? Especially how they all seem to point towards, well, one really critical challenge ahead.
Absolutely. And that core topic, the one weaving through everything, it's pretty compelling. Securing our future against,
Yeah.
the quantum threat
Mhm.
and focusing on what looks like a key development happening right down at the hardware level.
Exactly. So our goal today really is to sift through these documents together, pull out what's most important, and help you understand why this specific partnership they highlight, why it could be such a foundational step, building the defenses we'll need for that post-quantum world.
Building the quantum shield, you called it. I like that
Yeah,
framing.
kind of constructing that base layer.
Okay, let's kick things off with the core announcement. It pops up across these sources, this Strategic Memorandum of Understanding, the MOU, between BTQ Technologies and ICTK Co. Ltd.
Right. And according to that email you sent over, it stresses this isn't just, a simple agreement. It's specifically called out as a strategic partnership.
Strategic, got it.
And the source material describes ICTK as, well, a specialist. Secure semiconductor technologies with really deep roots, apparently, in Asia's digital infrastructure.
Okay, so why this partnership and why is it happening right now? The article notes this deal looks like a really bold step towards embedding quantum resilient security
Yeah.
directly into the hardware, like right onto the chip itself.
Precisely. One piece states this could really position BTQ as maybe a foundational player in this next era of digital defense, building that shield, like we said.
The essential infrastructure piece. So the sources also detail three immediate goals they're focusing on with this collaboration.
Yes, first up, developing a quantum-secure cold wallet, specifically for digital assets.
Okay, that makes immediate sense. Go after securing the high-value stuff first.
Right. And second, they plan to embed BTQ's proprietary CSH architecture directly into ICTK's secure chipsets.
Ah, so that's the real tech integration,
Yeah.
merging their key stuff.
Exactly. And third, they're looking much broader, too, exploring applications across IoT, Internet of Things devices, digital identity, financial infrastructure.
So not just one niche.
Yeah.
They're thinking foundationally across different areas where this security will be needed.
That seems to be the idea. And one thing the write-up makes really clear is understanding ICTK's role here. They're not just like a standard chip design house.
No.
They're specifically a semiconductor security firm. That's their niche.
Okay, and their track record matters here. The research highlights these deep roots in Asia's digital infrastructure. It mentions government contracts in South Korea, existing secure chip deployments in major banks and identity systems.
Yeah, so they bring that real-world, large-scale implementation experience. They know how to get things deployed.
And how do they get that deep hardware security? The research points to their proprietary PUF technology, physical unclonable function.
UF. Okay, what does that mean practically?
Think of it like giving each chip its own unique, secure physical fingerprint. It's derived from tiny variations in its physical structure, making it practically impossible to clone. Wow, okay, so the chip's identity is baked into its physical self.
Pretty much. And this fingerprint acts as a hardware-anchored cryptographic identity. Crucial, the research points out, for securing things like low-power IoT devices, mobiles, where traditional key storage might be risky or impractical.
Right, less attack surface if the identity isn't stored data.
Exactly. So what the documents really emphasize is that ICTK brings these proven deployment capabilities, the production capacity, and importantly, alignment with regulations.
And BTQ, on the other side, they bring their cutting-edge crypto software and this scalable hardware engine they call Cache-H.
So the synergy, as one article describes it, is really about creating a potential platform, a platform for quantum secure chips at scale.
At scale, not just lab experiments.
That seems to be the goal, which, brings us right to the urgency. Why is this all such a big deal now?
Well, the article notes that our current encryption standards, RSA, ECC, the stuff securing basically everything online right now, they're running out of time.
Because quantum computers.
Exactly. Once they get powerful enough, they can theoretically break these algorithms, render them useless.
And that's precisely why bodies like NIST, the NSA, regulators globally, they're all pushing hard for rapid adoption of post-quantum cryptography, PQC.
New algorithms designed to resist those quantum attacks.
Right, but they need to be implemented everywhere, proactively. And the write-up mentions BTQ is already deep in that work, implementing these new standards.
So looking at the bigger picture, If quantum computing is the next massive digital platform shift, the sources draw some interesting comparisons for BTQ's positioning.
Yeah, one article suggests they're aiming to be kind of like what Cisco was to the early internet.
The essential security backbone, enabling trust and scale.
That's the analogy they use. And the research also brings up CrowdStrike.
So,
Well, CrowdStrike sort of redefined endpoint security for the cloud era, right? The note here is that BTQ seems to be working to secure these quantum era devices and protocols, but not just with software add-ons. It's about deeply embedded architecture, built in, not bolted on.
okay, that distinction feels important, and the email even points out the leadership gets it, mentioning a specific post by the CEO, Olivier Roussy-Newton, reinforcing that strategic view.
Definitely. And let's talk numbers for a second, because the ones derived from these sources really paint a picture of the potential scale here.
Okay.
One article notes BTQ's stock performance was, well, pretty significant, up 875% in the past year, trading at $2.73 as of late May 2025.
Wow, okay. That's substantial.
And the research provides market projections, too. Quantum computing market itself, expected to grow from about $1.8 billion this year to over $7 billion by 2030.
Big growth. But what about the security side?
That's where it gets really interesting. One piece states the quantum cybersecurity market, just the security aspect, is projected to hit over $9.8 billion by 2030.
Wait, so the security market is projected to be larger than the quantum computing market itself in that time frame?
According to that projection, yeah. Which really underlines how absolutely critical this security layer is seen to be.
It makes sense. The write-up points out, eventually, every single connected device will probably need quantum-safe protection.
And here's a key point from the sources. While a lot of the headlines chase quantum speed, how fast the computers are work, BTQ's focus is on quantum resilience, the defense. And that, the sources suggest, is something the market maybe hasn't fully grasped or priced in yet.
So what specifically makes their approach different? You mentioned it's not just software.
Right. The sources explain that while others talk about quantum readiness, BTQ seems to be engineering it right into the foundations.
How?
Well, the research describes their C-hash architecture as a kind of cryptographic accelerator. It's designed specifically for these heavy PQC workloads. Think of it like a specialized chip, like a GPU is for graphics, but this is optimized for post-quantum math.
Enabling real-time PQC even on smaller devices.
That's the idea, making it feasible on, say, IoT sensors or mobile phones. And then you layer in the PUF integration from ICTK that we talked about.
The unclonable digital DNA.
Exactly. So you get hardware-bound identity without storing vulnerable keys or data on the chip itself.
Okay, and the email highlights this. Full stack synergy.
Yeah, that's the term they used. The goal seems to be quantum-safe protection all the way from the silicon chip level right up to the cloud, covering all those applications we mentioned, wallets, identity, IoT.
So it really is aiming to be foundational. One article stresses this goes way beyond software patches. It calls it foundational hardware engineered to endure the post-quantum era.
Strong wording. And they even included a link in the sources if you wanted to get deeper into the technical weeds on why it's different.
Okay, so the final picture these sources paint, it feels pretty clear. They're suggesting the security infrastructure for this quantum age. It isn't some far-off future thing. It's being architected right now.
And they see a historical pattern repeating. You had Cisco for the internet backbone, Palo Alto Networks for securing the cloud, CrowdStrike for endpoints.
And BTQ, according to the piece, is positioning itself to build that essential security layer for the quantum age.
That seems to be the narrative presented. The email indicates that, yeah, the tech might still be relatively early stage, but the timing, it's seen as spot on.
Because regulation is coming.
The quantum threat is seen as inevitable.
And crucially, having this kind of embedded quantum resilience in hardware, it won't be optional anymore. It'll be expected.
Right. One piece wraps it up quite strongly, stating BTQ isn't just, following the old cybersecurity playbook. They're actively writing the one for this next huge technological shift.
So to sort of wrap up this deep dive into the materials you shared, the main takeaway seems to be this really significant hardware-first move by BTQ and ICTK. They're not waiting. They're embedding quantum security right at the chip level, proactively building the defenses needed before the quantum threat fully arrives.
It really does leave you with a fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? Drawn right from these sources. If history, shows us that the companies building the foundational security infrastructure, like Cisco did for the internet, if they end up defining the shape and the trust of that whole digital age, then what does this hardware-first embedded quantum resilience approach tell us about what the quantum age is really going to demand for security. And maybe, just maybe, who might be ready to provide it before everyone else realizes they need it.
That is a really provocative thought to end on.
Yeah.
It's definitely a space to keep watching this intersection of quantum and cybersecurity. Thanks for walking through these sources with us.
Absolutely. Fascinating